Welcome to Heartline Stories. Today's story follows a young woman who's caught in a shocking situation at work, sleeping on a toilet. What happens next will leave you speechless. From almost losing her job to winning the CEO's heart, you won't believe how things turn around. Will she get a second chance or be fired? And what could possibly happen between her and the boss? Keep watching to find out. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories. In a big city filled with tall buildings and busy streets, there was a young woman named Hannah. Hannah worked at a large company called Next Tech Innovations, which was known for its cutting-edge technology. She was an assistant to the CEO, Mr. Michael Clark, a wealthy, successful man who had a reputation for being tough and demanding. Hannah was a hard worker, always staying late and putting in extra hours to get things done. But life had not been easy for her. She came from a humble background, worked multiple jobs to pay her bills, and dreamed of making a name for herself. At Next Tech, she thought she could finally prove herself. One particularly busy day, things took a turn for the worse. The office was buzzing with stress, deadlines were closing in, and there were important meetings scheduled for later that afternoon. Everyone was running around, trying to get their work done. Hannah felt exhausted, not having gotten much sleep the night before. Her stomach rumbled from hunger, but she couldn't find a moment to grab a quick bite. The work was piling up, and it seemed like the day would never end. She started to feel lightheaded, but she didn't want to let her boss down. In her exhaustion, she made a mistake that would change everything. Unable to keep her eyes open any longer, Hannah decided to take a quick break. She found an empty bathroom stall, locked the door behind her, and sat on the toilet, hoping to rest for just a few minutes. It was quiet and peaceful, a perfect escape from the chaos of the office. But little did she know, this quiet moment would soon be interrupted by an unexpected visitor. As she dozed off, the bathroom door opened. Hannah woke with a start, surprised to see none other than Mr. Clark, the CEO himself, standing in front of her. His sharp eyes widened in shock, but before he could say anything, Hannah quickly stood up, embarrassed. "Oh no, Mr. Clark, I didn't mean to fall asleep in here. I was just so tired and the work is piling up." Hannah stammered, her face turning bright red. The CEO raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. He didn't say a word at first, just looked at her with a mix of surprise and curiosity. "Hannah, is everything okay?" he asked, his voice much softer than she expected. Hannah stood up straighter, embarrassed but determined to explain. "I'm sorry. It's just been a long day and I thought I could sneak in a little break. I didn't mean for this to happen. I promise I'll make it right." Michael Clark was used to people trying to impress him, trying to hide their weaknesses. But Hannah wasn't doing that. She was being honest, vulnerable, and real with him. And for the first time, he saw something different in her. Instead of anger or frustration, he felt a sense of admiration for her courage. "You're working hard, aren't you?" Mr. Clark said, leaning against the doorframe. "I know the pressure is high around here. It's not easy, but you should take care of yourself too." Hannah was shocked. The CEO was offering her sympathy. This was not the hard, cold businessman she'd heard so much about. And then, without another word, Michael walked out of the bathroom, leaving her to process what had just happened. The rest of the day passed in a blur for Hannah. She kept thinking about the encounter. Was he just being nice? Or was there something more behind it? As days passed, Mr. Clark's behavior toward Hannah began to change. He'd stop by her desk and ask her how she was doing, how her workload was going. He even asked her opinion in meetings, something he had never done before. It felt like he was actually paying attention to her, really listening. One day, a week later, after yet another long meeting, Mr. Clark called Hannah into his office. She nervously stepped inside, unsure of what was going to happen. "Hannah, I need to talk to you," Michael said, looking more serious than usual. "You've been working so hard lately, and I can see you're pushing yourself to the limit. I admire your dedication. But you need to stop overworking yourself. It's not healthy." Hannah nodded, feeling slightly overwhelmed. She had always pushed herself, always tried to prove that she could handle it all. "I'll be fine," she said. But Michael shook his head. "No, you won't be. You need a break, and I'm going to make sure you get it. In fact, I'm offering you a role that will allow you to get the recognition you deserve." Hannah blinked. "What do you mean?" I'm offering you a promotion, Mr. Clark said, his eyes steady on hers. I've seen how hard you've worked, and I know you've got what it takes. You've earned this. Hannah was speechless. She couldn't believe it. A promotion? To a higher position in the company? But she had only made a mistake in the bathroom, and he'd noticed her hard-working spirit. Maybe there was more to this than she had thought. But then Mr. Clark added something that left her speechless. Also, he continued, I've been thinking a lot about what happened in the bathroom that day, and I think there's something special about you, Hannah. I don't just mean your work ethic. I'm saying this because I believe you're someone who is truly real, and that's rare. Hannah's heart skipped a beat. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? The CEO, the man she worked for? Was he interested in her? Before she could respond, Michael Clark stood up and walked over to the window, looking out over the city below. I think you're someone who can make a real difference around here, he said softly. Suddenly, the office door opened, and another employee walked in, breaking the moment. Michael cleared his throat and turned to Hannah. I'll see you tomorrow. Think about the offer. We'll talk more. Hannah left his office, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. What had just happened? Was she about to get a promotion, or was something more happening between them? As the days went on, Michael continued to show his support for her. They worked closely together, and the connection between them grew stronger. It wasn't just about the job anymore. It was about the trust, respect, and something deeper. But what would happen next? Would this unexpected connection between Hannah and Michael turn into something more, or was it simply professional admiration? The story was just beginning, and nobody knew how it would end. But one thing was certain, Hannah's life was about to change forever, in ways she never imagined. Hannah spent the next few days trying to process everything. Her thoughts were a whirlwind as she replayed every interaction she'd had with Mr. Clark in the past few days. The kindness, the compliments, the promotion offer. It all felt surreal, but at the same time, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing between them, something deeper than just work. One afternoon, as she was finishing up a report, she was called into Michael's office once again. This time it was different. His office was quieter, and there was an unusual calm in the air. Michael wasn't just the CEO, he was someone who had started to understand her beyond her role as his assistant. Hannah, he started, his voice softer than usual, I want to take a moment to talk about the work you've been doing here. It's outstanding, and I've been impressed by how you handle everything with grace. Hannah looked at him, trying to keep her composure. She had never been one to accept compliments easily. Thank you, Mr. Clark, she said, though she felt a little embarrassed. I'm just doing my job. Michael smiled, his eyes lighting up. That's the thing, Hannah. You're doing more than just your job. You're making a real difference here. But I've noticed something else. Hannah's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to continue with such a serious tone. What's that? She asked cautiously. Michael leaned forward, his gaze steady and intense. I've noticed that you've been working yourself to exhaustion, and while I admire your dedication, I want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. You've been burning the candle at both ends for so long. Hannah took a deep breath. I've just been trying to prove myself. I want to show everyone that I'm capable, that I can do this job well. He nodded thoughtfully, then stood up from his desk and walked over to the window. Hannah, he said after a long pause, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You've already shown that you're more than capable, and if you ever need a break or support, I'm here for you. Hannah's chest tightened. She hadn't expected such a genuine offer, especially from someone like Michael. She had spent so long trying to impress him and everyone else that she hadn't realized how much it was wearing her down. It wasn't just the work. It was the constant pressure she placed on herself. I appreciate that, Hannah said quietly, but I don't want to disappoint anyone. I'm just trying to keep up. Michael turned to face her, his expression serious. Hannah, you're not alone in this. You have a team. You have me. And that means something. You don't need to carry all the weight by yourself. For a moment, there was an uncomfortable silence. Hannah looked at Michael, her emotions swirling. She had never imagined this level of understanding, this kind of connection. Was it just professional admiration, or was it something more? I'm not just talking about work either. Michael added, his tone softening. I think you're an incredible person, and I don't want you to feel like you're invisible or alone. Hannah felt her heart race. Could he be saying what she thought he was saying? Was Michael Clark, the powerful CEO she worked for, actually telling her he saw her as more than just an employee? Before she could respond, Michael gave her a warm smile. I want you to take some time for yourself. You've earned it. You're not just a worker here, Hannah. You matter. And I mean that. Hannah felt her eyes well up, but she quickly wiped the tears away, not wanting to appear too emotional. She had always been the strong one, the one who had to hold it all together, but now Michael was offering her something different: support, kindness, and understanding. Thank you, Mr. Clark. I didn't expect this, she said softly, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. Michael's smile widened. You can call me Michael, and I mean it, Hannah. Take care of yourself. Let me know if you need anything. As she left his office, her mind was racing. Michael's words echoed in her ears. She hadn't expected any of this, and now she wasn't sure what to do with her feelings. Was this just a mentor offering advice, or was there something more between them? As the days went on, Hannah continued to work hard, but she also made sure to take some time for herself. Michael kept showing his support, offering help when needed and checking in on her well-being. She couldn't help but feel that their connection was growing stronger, but she didn't know if it was just in her head. One evening, as the office was quiet and most of the staff had gone home, Hannah was finishing up a report when Michael appeared in the doorway of her office. Working late again? He asked, a teasing smile on his lips. I just have a few more things to wrap up, Hannah replied, looking up at him. You know, Michael said, stepping into the room, you don't have to keep working like this. You've done enough for today. Hannah smiled. I know, but I just want to make sure everything is perfect. Michael walked over to her desk and leaned against it, his presence calming. You're perfect just as you are, Hannah, and you don't have to do it all alone. Hannah looked at him, her heart beating faster. She had always admired his intelligence and work ethic, but now she was beginning to see him in a different light. He wasn't just the CEO, he was someone who genuinely cared about her well-being. Before she could say anything else, Michael took a step closer. Hannah, there's something I need to say. Hannah's breath caught in her throat. What was he going to say? Would this be the moment when everything changed? The tension between them was palpable as Michael looked at her, his eyes filled with emotion. Hannah's heart raced, unsure of what would come next. But what happened next was something neither of them could have predicted. Michael took another step closer, his presence overwhelming yet comforting at the same time. He looked into her eyes for a long moment, and Hannah could feel her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know what he was thinking, but the intensity of his gaze told her it was something important. Hannah, he began, his voice softer now, almost uncertain. I've been thinking a lot about what we've talked about these past few days. You've done more for this company than anyone could ever expect, and you've been an incredible person to work with. He paused, his eyes still locked onto hers. But it's not just about work, is it? Hannah's breath caught in her throat. She felt a lump form in her throat, unsure of how to respond. What was he implying? Was this about her work ethic, or was it something else entirely? Michael continued, his tone even quieter now. I've noticed something about you, something I can't ignore. You're more than just the assistant in my office. You've become someone I can't stop thinking about. Hannah's heart skipped a beat. The air seemed to thicken around them as she tried to process his words. What was he saying? Was this just professional admiration, or was it something more? Before she could respond, Michael took a step back and ran a hand through his hair, as though he was struggling with his own feelings. I'm sorry. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I had to say it. You've been on my mind a lot lately, and I can't ignore it anymore. Hannah's mind was racing, trying to catch up with the emotions swirling inside her. She had always respected Michael as a boss, but now she realized her feelings for him were starting to change too. Her heart was telling her something different than her mind, and she didn't know how to handle it. Hannah started, but she stopped herself. She wasn't sure what to say. She couldn't just blurt out what was on her mind. Was she ready to even talk about it? Could she admit that she was starting to feel the same way? Michael seemed to sense her hesitation. I understand if you're not ready to talk about it, he said, his voice gentle. But I couldn't keep pretending like nothing was changing between us. I value our work relationship, but I also want you to know that I care about you as more than just an employee. Hannah's heart raced as his words sank in. She had never expected this, never imagined that Michael Clark, the successful CEO she had worked for all this time, would confess his feelings to her. It felt like everything she knew about their professional relationship was being turned upside down. I, Hannah started again, but this time she couldn't hold back. She had to say something. I care about you too, Michael. The words tumbled out before she could stop them, and for a moment she stood frozen, unsure of what would happen next. Michael's eyes softened as he smiled, a mix of relief and happiness crossing his face. I'm glad to hear that, he said softly. I've been hoping for this. Hannah could feel her cheeks flush with a mix of embarrassment and excitement. She had never imagined herself in this situation, but now that she was here, it felt right. There was no going back now. So, what happens now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael stepped even closer, a warm and reassuring smile on his face. Now we take it one step at a time. We continue to work together, but we also figure out where this goes. We don't have to rush anything. I just want you to know that I'm here for you, whatever you need. Hannah nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. She had spent so long being uncertain about everything, but now she felt like she was on the edge of something new, something that could change everything. Michael reached out and gently touched her hand, sending a shiver through her. You don't have to make any decisions right now. I just wanted to be honest with you. Hannah smiled, her heart racing in her chest. Thank you for being honest with me. I wasn't sure if you felt the same way. Michael's smile deepened. I've been trying to figure it out for a while, but now that I know you feel the same, I'm not going to let this opportunity slip away. There was a moment of silence as the weight of their words hung in the air. Both of them were standing on the edge of something uncertain, but for the first time, it felt like the uncertainty wasn't scary. It felt exciting. I think we should take it slow, Hannah said, finding her voice. We don't have to figure everything out right now. Michael agreed. Slow sounds perfect. Let's take our time and see where this goes. I promise, I'm not going anywhere. For the first time in a long time, Hannah felt a sense of peace. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that she was ready to face it, with Michael by her side. The following weeks were filled with small moments, casual lunches together, after-work conversations, and shared laughter. Their connection grew stronger, but they both knew the importance of balancing their professional lives with their growing personal relationship. As time went on, things began to change in the office as well. People started noticing the shift between Michael and Hannah, but neither of them was ready to announce it to the world just yet. They both valued their privacy and the work they had built together. One day, after a particularly long day of meetings, Michael and Hannah found themselves in his office once again. This time, it wasn't about work. It was about something more. Do you remember the first time we talked about taking care of yourself? Michael asked as he sat down across from her. Hannah smiled softly. I remember. It feels like a lifetime ago. Michael chuckled. I've been thinking a lot about it, and I want to make sure you're always taken care of, whether it's your career, your well-being, or just everything. Hannah's heart swelled at his words. She never expected to be in this position, to feel so cared for, so valued, not just as an employee, but as a person. And for the first time, she felt ready to embrace whatever came next. Hannah looked into Michael's eyes, her heart full of emotion. She had spent so long working hard, trying to prove herself, and now she was realizing that she had a support system in Michael, someone who truly cared about her. I don't know what the future holds, she said quietly, but I feel like I'm ready for it. With you. Michael smiled softly, his eyes warm with affection. I feel the same way, Hannah. We've already built something amazing here, and now it's time to build something even better, together. With that, the office door clicked open, breaking the moment, but the warmth between them remained. Michael stood up and extended his hand to her. How about we grab dinner? Just the two of us. We can talk more about our future. Hannah nodded, a bright smile forming on her face. I'd like that. As they walked out of the office together, Hannah realized just how much her life had changed in such a short time. From that moment of embarrassment on the toilet to finding love with the CEO, she had learned one important thing. Life could surprise you in the most unexpected ways. And as for Michael, he knew that the woman sitting next to him wasn't just an employee. She was someone who had touched his heart in a way no one else had. She had opened his eyes to something more than just business, and he was willing to take the time to let that connection grow. The road ahead wasn't going to be perfect. There would be challenges. But together, they knew they could face anything. They had something real now, something worth fighting for. And so, as they left the office behind, they stepped into their new future, hand in hand, ready for whatever was to come. Thank you for joining us on this Heartline journey. What's the real cost of second chances? Sometimes life's surprises lead to the greatest rewards. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.